Something like a push up.
You just do it like a certain way, like if
You
we have
just
if we're going for like walleye.
me and my dad and my mom and stuff normally just go
Just them
for
already?
northern bass, walleye.
How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Alright, for those of you who don't know, my name is Cody Wiesmiller, and I'm sponsored by High Tech Fishing. High Tech Fishing is one of the world's most leading fishing companies in both open water and ice fishing. And today we're going to go through all their products and how to use them as well. We're going to cover some topics today like safety on the ice fishing periods, tips and tricks, and all the gear that you are seeing right now. So let's get started. Alright, ice fishing safety is a big thing, and I'm going to tell you a fact right now. You are never 100% safe on the ice, no matter what you do. The reason why this is because ice is very inconsistent. For example, in early ice, the ice is usually 3 inches thick, and in another spot, it can be maybe not even an inch or maybe quarter of an inch. Excuse me here, I gotta remember what I practiced here. Ice is very inconsistent, and for that reason, you're able to fall through. And I don't have the gear with me today that I would show you to practice ice fishing safety. But one of the tools that I use is an ice fishing chisel or a spud bar. And all that is a tool that's maybe 4.5, 5 feet long, and it weighs about 15 or 20 pounds, and it's got a blade at the end of it. And the object of that is you pull it out and you walk and hit the ice as hard as you can, and one or two things is going to happen. Either water's going to come up the hole or you're going to fall through. That's the first sign that it's unsafe ice. If none of those options happen, then you're safe. Then you're on safe ice. A couple other things that people do to remain safe on the ice is they wear life jackets or they bring along ice picks. How many of you know what ice picks are? Okay. Now, for those of you who don't know what ice picks are, I forgot to bring them with me today, but you basically wear them around your neck, and if you happen to fall through, you bring them around your head, and you hit the ice with them really hard. And they have little picks on the inside of them like that. They'll grip onto the ice, and you should be able to hoist yourself up onto the ice. So is there any other questions about ice fishing safety that you may want to know?
I'll tell you one thing what you should know. If you do fall through, how do you keep yourself warm? I mean, that's what I learned in Water Scouts is that if you go fall through the ice, how to keep yourself warm? You should keep your knees up to your chest and this kind of this float there if you can. I mean, that's one thing I learned if to get non-hypothermia. I mean, that's one danger thing that you can get when you're out ice fishing if you don't have the right equipment on your fingers or on your face or on your toes. I mean, so just pay attention, if you do fall through. I mean, Cody's dad, do you have any suggestions or things to say
Well,
about that?
that's pretty much what they teach you, is that they're also what the pick stores. It's pretty much depending on where you try to slide yourself level on the ice and it kind of crawls. If you,
Is that a walleye?
No. Well, this one's a walleye, yes.
Yeah.
This is a northern.
Yep.
She brings up a good point, hypothermia. I mean, if you do happen to fall through, you can take the points that she suggested. Another thing people do, if you have a vehicle nearby, most of the time people will strip down because another thing you want to do is you want to get dry. You want to stay warm, but you also want to get dry because you can almost freeze to death from hypothermia. So again, that's just another tip. Alright, any other suggestions, any other questions? Okay.
Cody, you had one.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever fell through the ice?
Nope, but I know people who have. Yeah. Last year, a couple friends of mine, they were going out on ice that was way too thin to begin with, and they got about 5 feet off the shore, and they both went through from what they told me the next day. So, but I've never fallen through. I don't intend to fall through. But actually, a story that I have of the time I almost fell through was I brought the ice chisel along with me, and it was in the middle of January, and I already knew that the ice was thick enough, safe enough to support my weight. And my conscience just told me to bring that ice chisel. And as I'm walking along with it, all of a sudden, I go through, and it turned out to be a spot about maybe 3 feet wide and probably about 5 feet long, big enough to the point where if I had not brought that ice chisel, I could have walked in that same spot and I would have went through. So that's the story. You're never 100% safe on the ice, even in mid-ice period, where the ice is usually at its thickest. What caused that was a spring. Underground springs can cause oxygen underneath the ice, make the ice really thin. So that's just my quick story.
And it sometimes prevents heat, right? Does it prevent heat also, the springs?
Well, springs can make heat.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too. That's a good point. You can make the ice thinner from heat, yes.
Well, it's more the circulation of the spring. Keeps, it's when you're at home and you like to have a drip so your pipes don't freeze. You legislate with a dripper, keep the pipes from freezing. As long as there's rotation in the water.
Okay. So the next topic we have is ice periods. For those of you who are already asking questions about the fish, these are both lake trout. You can catch these at Big Green, and you can catch these all the way down to 200 feet of water. I mean, these are very fun to fight and very good tasting.
Oh, man, you caught those on what lake?
Green Lake.
That's
Big.
a nice fish on the left there.
Yeah, that was actually my first lake trout that I caught through the ice. This one, my godfather Romy, he handed me the rod, but this one was actually the first lake trout that I had caught all by myself. That was a big 26-inch lake trout.
Wow.
So the topic of ice periods, we kind of dug into that a little bit with the first topic, but there's 3 main ice periods that a lot of people like to go by. Number 1 is early ice, and then number 2 is mid ice, and number 3 is late ice. A brief description of early ice is like right now outside. The climate is getting colder and the ice is just starting to form on the ponds and the lakes, and that's when the ice is getting thicker. The DNR recommends 3 inches of ice before you can start safely walking on it. Early ice to me is 3 inches thick to 6 inches thick. That's to me early ice. That's how I know that's early ice. Or around mid-December through early January. To me, that's early ice. Mid-ice is where you start to see ice like this. It's white. You got a lot of snow coverage. People are driving trucks out on the ice. That's when the ice is usually at its safest and at its thickest. But again, you're never 100% safe on the ice. As I told the story before, I hit that spring and it was mid-ice. Yes?
Well, one day we were ice fishing on my friend's pond, and just when you're about to go through my foot collector's ice.
Yep.
It did?
You were on shore. You just got off the shore, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, the reason why that is because there's a lot of oxygen towards the shoreline,
Yeah.
and that makes the ice pretty thin. Because, I mean, people think when the lake freezes over that it's solid. Actually, the ice is floating on the water, for those of you who don't know. So again, mid-ice is when the ice is at its safest usually and at its thickest. People are driving trucks out on the ice. They got their four-wheelers, snowmobiles.
That's 4 weeks.
Four-wheelers.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, your bike's too. He has one.
Yeah. I wish I had one, but we don't have money. So, we don't have the money for it. So, and then the last one is late ice. Late ice, some people like to think that the ice is actually melting, and it's actually not. The ice is actually getting weaker. What causes this is, as you can see, all the snow that's on the ice right here. What's going to happen is as the climate gets warmed up, this snow right here is all going to melt. And then instead of snow, you're going to get rain, and what that water does and what that slush will do is it weighs down the ice, and eventually it'll put so much weight on the ice to the point where it actually sinks. So that's late ice right there. Late ice is actually from maybe the middle of February through March. The ending of the ice fishing season, or the ending of the fishing season period, is the first Sunday in March. That's the day where or actually that's the day you have that one day. Uh, Excuse me, let me rephrase this. That is the last day of the season where you are allowed to catch game fish, which are pike, bass, walleyes, and muskies. But lake trout and panfish are open after that because panfish aren't a game fish, and trout are open, I think, through September because during September that's when they spawn. Trout are a totally different fish from what I fish
That's
for.
when they spawn?
Huh?
September is when they spawn?
I think it closes at the end of September. I know that sometime in September is when the lake trout season closes.
Oh, so
The reason for that is.
when does it open after September?
I think it opens back up in November, like right around now,
So-
December.
Yeah. Alright.
You also have to have your shanties and then off by the first Sunday in March.
Yep, that too.
Do you have any tips how to catch some fish at all?
Yep, I'll get into that once we get to the gear topic.
Alright.
So as I was saying, there was.
The reason why they close the lake trout fishing in September is because the lake trout come up close to shore. And that way, they just feed in a feeding frenzy, and you actually literally can wipe out the population. That's why they're not.
How? But
All the fish come in, because normally they're 200 feet deep in a big ring, they'll come up at the 5-6 feet of water, and they congregate like surgeons. They just sit there and get in a feeding frenzy in their breeding period before they go back deep. So it's basically a protection for the
when
lake
you
trout.
go on the ice, it weighs it down?
Well, yeah, but in September there's no ice in September.
Oh.
That's why
Yeah,
they just,
that's right.
yeah.
Okay, so as I was saying, there's early ice, mid ice, and late ice. Early ice is when the ice is forming. Mid ice is usually when it's at its safest and at its thickest, and then late ice is when the ice is getting weaker and it starts to sink. Wind is another factor too that can really determine how safe the ice is, because wind can chop up this ice really quick depending on the direction it's going and how fast it's going. I just thought I'd bring that up real quick. So the next topic.
What do you have?
Another question?
Yeah, and let's say that like the ice melts and then like refreezes. Like let's say that there's a day of like 35, 40 or something like that, and like there's water on top of the ice. Then sometimes it might reform, and then you take that spud bar and you break through it. It may seem like that it's not safe, but it still might be.
Yep, that actually happened last year around this time actually, where the ice was just maybe not even an inch thick, and we had some snow, and then we had a mixture of some snow and some rain, but it was cold enough. We had the majority of it snow, and then all of a sudden it got below freezing that night, and it just froze. Everything was frozen into about 6 inches of ice. So I was out probably about a week or two early than what I should have been. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Alright, next topic is clothing. This is the suit that I wear right here. This is Ice Armor X suit. These are really pricey because they're thermal, they're waterproof, and windproof, and it just really keeps you warm. The benefits of this too is that they have the two knee pads right here, which when you bend down at a tip up to pick up the tip up, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, your knees won't get wet. And another benefit of this too is all the pockets. It's kind of hard to see. I would have brought my ice fishing suit in, but I didn't have that much room to carry, so it's just really good overall. I wear that most of the time in the season. But I wouldn't tell you to go out and buy something like this, even though High Tech Fishing makes the Polar Fire gear. They have a whole line of Polar Fire ice fishing tackle and clothing. But really, what I'm gonna say to you about clothing is go out what you know will get you through the day. Go out in clothing that you know will make it through the day. Uh, my preference would be go out wearing some lawn underwear, your pants, t-shirt, sweatshirt, and then throw over some snow pants and then your jacket. That's just my preference. So is there any other questions about that?
Shouldn't you have creepers on your bottom of your boots or shoes?
Yep.
So you won't slip and fall.
Yep. Actually, that's one thing I forgot too. And another thing I also forgot was hats.
Always wear hats.
Yep. Hats can be really good, but most of the time I'm just wearing one of these. I'm just wearing one of these hats, and I just wear my hood over it. But yeah, these, in my opinion, these hats right here are the best because, I mean, I don't know, it's just me, but to me they're just really comfortable and they break the wind really nice, and I think they look good.
And they cover your ears also.
Yup. As to what she said about the ice cleats, they, like right here, this is all glare ice, which means that there's no snow on top of it and it's really slippery. It's like ice at the ice skating rink. That's when you want to have ice cleats. High Tech Fishing makes their own high tech fishing cleats, one size fits all, and they last me throughout the season. And pretty much what they are, they're just bear claws on the bottom of them. They just have a little bit of sharp ridges on the bottom, and they just really stick to the ice really well. Those are really beneficial for when I'm drilling my holes through the ice, and so when I'm running after tip-ups, I don't slide and slip. So is there any other questions?
Basically, for what she was saying, that's very important. Without wearing those on the bottom of your shoes, last year at the hospital alone, there was 40 injuries of broken arms, legs, and that's for people who fell on the ice just walking from hole to hole. You just go like that, and it's not too hard to break something. You can
Okay.
ask the hospital, they see many.
You can go.
If you run, does it scare the fish or no?
Actually, that's a good point. Typically, what I try to what I do to control myself is on glare ice. Don't run, because those fish can hear you. They can hear you really well.
Yeah, when you're on snow.
When you're on snow, it actually, you have more traction and the snow packs to your weight, and you really don't. The fish won't hear you as well. But sound travels through water faster than it travels through air, like how I'm talking to you right now. Sound can travel through water really, really fast. So I'm running on the ice. They're hearing boom, 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 right on the ice to where you're running, and that can cause the fish to drop your lure or your bait. So again, that's what I wear. Wear a hat, your ice fishing cleats, and as you said, glare ice. The fish can hear you a lot better compared to the snow. They don't really hear you as well, but they can still hear you a little bit.
Is that a fish head?
What are you looking at? This?
Yeah.
This is actually 2 northern pike that I'm holding up. I didn't get a good picture of this one, but that was just a time where we had 2 flags go up at the same time. We both got our fish, and I figured, let's take the picture of both of them and put them back.
Well, what is that? They're in the water?
Yep, put them back.
26 inches.
I don't keep many fish through the ice season. Or actually, I take that back. I don't keep that many fish through the open water season, but I keep a lot of fish during the ice fishing season. But the legal size limit for northern pike is 26 inches. This one, I think, if I remember correctly, that one was somewhere like in the 26, 27 inch range. But I don't keep anything out of that pond. I kept a couple bluegills out of there earlier this season just to see, how healthy the fish were and stuff like that. But as far as pike, I'll keep a few throughout the season, but not at the pond where I go to. This right here was actually 28 inch northern pike. I did keep that one. This one came out of the mill pond. So, yeah. For those of you who don't know, the mill pond has a lot of big fish in it.
I caught a pike there.
I caught one, I think. He was a little one, about that big, but he was a nice pike. Bone
Yep.
big, but Wait, no, one time I caught one on a long fishing rod, during the summer, and he was a bone bag, he was about that big.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I think I caught one, same thing, bone bag, but if he growed up, he would probably be a nice northern.
Yep. That's why I always release my fish usually. I only keep them if I know I'm gonna eat them. Like I was saying about the mill pond, they have a lot of big fish in it, but you gotta really sort through the small ones to get to the big ones. There's always a saying that goes, you gotta catch the small ones to get to the big ones, and that actually, it comes from pan fishing, because pan fishing, when I'm catching bluegills and crappies, I gotta sort through all the little dinks in order to get to the big ones. So, again, if you ever get the chance, I mean, put in your effort at the mill pond. That's what I can say. Put a lot of effort into fishing that mill pond, because I fish there just about every single day in the summer. And to get a little bit off track here, but when I was bass fishing there, I caught a 22-inch, 6-pound largemouth out of there, and I caught 2 of them out of there last season. One of them was on a DT10 Rapala, and then another one was on a weightless Texas rig worm, or just a plastic. So again, if you put in your effort, you can catch a lot of nice fish out of there. So was there any other questions?
You have any pictures
Any pictures?
of them?
Yeah, I can show some pictures after the seminar, because they're not on the presentation, they're actually on my phone.
Okay, and we're done.
Okay, so next is the subject that everyone wants to get to. Everyone wants to get to is the gear. So to start out this gear section, I got a couple pieces of equipment that can be really, really crucial when you're ice fishing. This right here, for those of you who don't know, this is a Sonar unit, or this is a Markham VX1 Pro. These range for about, I think my dad paid $200 for this for me. Thanks, Dad. This is what it'll look like. And the purpose of this is, I mean, how many of you have actually used these before? Okay. So what you're gonna see, or you're gonna put your handle over here, and this is your transducer. This is what's able to see the fish.
Yep.
And you just put that on the handle right there. I actually need a new handle. Someone broke it last year. Not me. But you put this transducer down the hole and turn it on. And the top is going to be your red light, like that. And since there's no bottom, since it's not in the water, it's not reading any bottom signal. How many of you can see this? Okay. So let's just say my bottom is at 10 feet. You're going to get another solid red line at the top as you would the bottom. Right? You're going to get another solid red line at the bottom. My bottom's 10 feet. And what I do is, when I'm pan fishing, this is what I do. For those of you who want to know how to catch more panfish, this is what I do. I start out at the top, and I drop my jig straight down to the bottom. And most of the time, when you drop it down to the bottom, work that bait up off the bottom really slow. Don't jig it really aggressively. I see a lot of anglers doing that, not catching anything. But just really subtle, just barely moving the tip of that rod. And you're going to see it rise up off the bottom, and I'd say 90% of the time, the fish are going to come up and follow that bait up off the bottom, and that's when you're going to see the fish start to come up on the screen. I'm going to show you what I mean here by really subtle. This is a high-tech fishing tightline rod that they just came out with, I believe, last year. And what I do is drop it slowly down to the bottom, or just drop it straight to the bottom, and I'm gonna reel up until I see that spring kind of give in a little bit to the weight of that lure. Alright, so you see that, and I'm gonna kind of come to the side here so you guys can see it better. I'm just gonna barely move that spring. You can see that lure is just barely moving. It's a really, really good finesse presentation to catching panfish throughout the season. But that's what I'm doing. I'm just barely making that tail move, and they suck it up like it's nothing. And another tip I should point out, another trick I should point out here. Always find the smallest ice fishing lures that you can. Always find the smallest ones you can. A lure that High Tech Fishing has is a lure called the Marmuska jig. And I'll show a couple up here. This is a High Tech Fishing jig wallet that I like to call it. I'm not sure if it's actually called that, but that's what I call it. See how it holds all your jigs really nice. And that way you don't have a mess, and they just all hang up nicely right there. And this is a Marmuska jig. This is, I believe, the biggest size that they come in. And I'll pass this around, just don't get hooked. But this is a Marmuska jig right here. That's a Marmuska jig. Holiday has them for like 79 cents a piece. They're very cheap. And what I mean by small, you guys aren't going to believe it of how small I can go when it comes to ice fishing lures.
I have a bunch of these.
This is usually the size that I go with. Just look at how small that is. That's how small that I usually go. Once you guys see that, you're not going to believe it. That's what I'm usually rigging up on my rods, and that's what I'm usually using to watch come up off the screen. Now when it comes to the sonar unit, if you guys are as passionate about ice fishing as I am, or if you really want to go out ice fishing and catch a lot more fish, for Christmas put this thing on your list. This can really, really make the difference when it comes to catching fish through the ice. Because I mean, it's so simple. You got top, bottom, and anything in between is going to be a fish or some weeds. And then another feature that this Markham has is the zoom zone right here, ZM. And what that does, it'll show just the bottom, I think 4 feet of the water column. So you got 10 feet, you're just going to see the bottom 4 feet. And your jig is going to be magnified, you're going to see your jig a lot better, and you're going to be able to see fish a lot better too. So again, this Markham VX1 Pro is everything I need when it comes to catching a lot of panfish through the ice. The next piece of equipment that I have is the Vexillar camera. A lot. Probably about the same amount as that, I can't remember. But I'm gonna bend down here so I don't damage nothing. But this is what it is. And this underwater camera right here is the best on the market, and I can tell you why, because I spent a lot of time on the internet looking at all the different features that different makers have. And I chose the Vexillar because, I mean, like I said, it's the best on the market for what I use it for. I'm not going to turn it on because this thing is kind of a pain in the butt with all the cords you got to hook up to the back of the camera. But the nice thing about it is it's got a couple features with the camera. You have the horizontal presentation like this, or you can get the vertical presentation like this. And then it's got 2 LED lights right here for night fishing. And the special thing about this camera is that it will adjust the conditions underwater. You'll either get a black and white resolution, or you'll get a color resolution, or a color picture. And if it's really cloudy outside, most of the time you're going to get a color picture. But if it's sunny outside, you're going to get a black and white picture. So that's a really nice feature. I don't have to decide whether I want to go color or black and white. The camera already decides that for me. It's got 80 feet of cable, and just folds up nice right here, just comes in here. I mostly use this underwater camera for reading structure, which means I want to see the structure underwater. Like I want to look at weeds, what different fish are under there, And most of the time I don't fish with this, like I don't use it to help me catch fish. But I will do that sometimes when I'm jigging for bass or pike underneath the ice, and this is where this tool comes in handy. What I'm going to do, I'm going to drill 2 holes, and I'm going to put this over one hole and drop the camera down that hole. I'm going to put this in front of me, and I'm going to watch that screen, and I'm going to watch my lure on that screen. So that way the camera is out of the way. If I hook into a fish, that camera is out of the way, and the fish ain't going to get tangled up in there. But another benefit of it is the camera's in front of me, and I can watch what I'm doing, and I can watch other fish behind it, whatever else you want to see. So that's just a really great camera for reading structure underneath the ice, and it can work open water too. Not something that you really need, but it helps me to catch a lot more fish. Ice fishing is my passion, guys, so I gotta have whatever I need to help me catch fish. Is there any other questions about these 2 pieces of equipment before we move on? Nope. Okay. So I kind of got into the rods a little bit. I'm going to go off of what I said about this high-tech fishing tightline reel or tightline rod. The nice thing about this is that the line comes up off of the bottom of the reel, or it can come off the top, and it keeps the line straight throughout the whole process. And I keep my drag setting really loose because this is my rod for fishing shallow water. Shallow water to me is from like a foot all the way up until like 5 feet of water. I can get this jig down there really quickly, and I just drop it down there really slow, and I just watch. And it's got a really low gear ratio, which means, I mean, this thing's only reeling in, I think, maybe about 2 inches of line every turn. You can see that's got a really low gear ratio, and the drag setting, I'm catching crappies or big bluegills. The fish can run with this, and it's almost all tip. You can see how flexible that rod is. It's got a lot of durability, and I'm holding the rod like this. The only downfall to this rod, to me, is that it really puts a lot of pressure on my wrist when I'm reeling the fish in. That's something that I'm trying to work on. Let the fish fight me, not me fight the fish. So this is the high-tech fishing tightline reel, or tightline rod and reel that they came out with, I think last year. If not last year, then it was 2 years ago. Something that I added was the spring bobber. The spring bobber is just there for added sensitivity, and when I'm watching that, I'm not looking at the tip, I'm looking at the spring bobber. The spring bobber is going to be my #1 indicator to when I have a fish on. At Holiday they have these in at I think maybe $15, but that's with the rod and the reel. Line doesn't come with it, and the spring bobber doesn't come with it. But overall, this is a great rod, guys. I would highly suggest getting one. I actually did a rod review of this on one of my YouTube videos, and for those of you who don't know my YouTube account, I will show you after the seminar, or I can write it down for you after my seminar. Is there any other questions about this rod? So again, my shallow water rod. My deep water rod for panfish is this right here. This is the high-tech fishing AccuCast rod. And then, or no, not the AccuCast rod, the Maverick. The reel is the AccuCast reel. And the reason why I use this for deep water is because I'm not pulling the line off of my reel. If you know what I'm saying, let me get this untangled here. All I gotta do is open up that bail, and the jig just goes straight down to the bottom. It keeps my line somewhat straight, but I don't have that sensitivity there. That's why I use it for deep water. When I'm chasing after crappies, or bluegills or perch, I want a reel and a rod that's going to allow that jig to get down there really quick, so I can get to those fish. It's got nice backbone, it just has the perfect action for what I use it for. I have the drag loose again in case I hook up into a northern or a bass. I want to have that drag loose so I can fight that fish and catch that fish. This is another Mamuska jig here. So again, this is my rod for deep water, and it doesn't come with any of the reel grips. You actually have to put electrical tape around it. And something that I did with this rod is I kind of put the rod to the side, so when I'm sitting down on my bucket, I'm actually looking from the side, because when you look at the side, you're getting a much better picture of the bite instead of all lined up. So is there any questions about this? Okay. So I've explained my pan fishing setup. Now I want to talk about my lake trout, my bass, and my pike setup. This is the rod that High Tech Fishing just came out with last year. This is the High Tech Fishing Big Eye Pro Touch Rod and Reel series. This rod comes with the reel. The reel has a little bit of a bad anti-reverse, but overall it's a really good reel and has a really, really good smoothness to it. And the reason why I'm going to use this rod this year is because of the flexibility. Look at how flexible that is. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, when I'm open water fishing with crankbaits or jerk baits, I want a lot of give in that. Yeah?
Can you adjust it?
You
like
mean
in the back there? It's
this is actually a split grip handle, and what this allows you to do is you have a lot more room for your hands, and I don't know, to me you just have a lot more room overall. And actually it gives sensitivity too, because the blank, this rod blank, the rod runs through the handle and runs back here.
It does?
Yep. So I mean right here. And then so if I'm fishing it up against my arm like this, I can feel the hit a lot easier, and I can feel what my lure is doing easier. But when I'm open water fishing with crankbaits or jerk baits or anything where I'm fishing reaction baits, I want a rod with a lot of give to it, because if I have a stiff rod, that fish may short strike that lure, which means it'll barely hit it, and it will have the increased tendency to rip the hook out of the fish's mouth. Number one, that's going to be painful. Number two, you're going to miss that fish. If I have a rod with a lot of give and less backbone, I'm going to have a better chance of catching that fish, because that hook isn't going to be that penetrated. If you know what I'm saying. Do you know what I'm saying? So same thing goes for this. This rod I'm going to use anything like these lures right here. I'm not, huh?
Jig lures for walleye, anything.
Anything with a lot of hooks is when I'm going to use a flexible rod. See this right here? This is a jig by High Tech Fishing, and it's got the treble hook down here, and it's got two sharp hooks back here. Anything with a lot of hooks, I want a lot of give in that rod, so it's less painful for the fish, and I actually have an increased chance of catching that fish compared to a stiff rod where I have a lot of deep penetration, and if it does happen to short strike it through the ice, I'm not going to miss that fish. So this is a lure by High Tech Fishing right here. This one is by Jammin' Jigs. People can go to jamminjigs.com. They sell a lot of lures for pretty much dirt cheap prices. I mean, you're talking, I think, like what, maybe 50-60 cents a jig. And this one right here, this was brand new for them last year. I forget the name of it. I think it was called the humpback jig because of the hump in the lure. Again, it's got a lot of hooks on there. Anything with a lot of hooks, you want to be using a slightly flexible rod, so it's got a lot of give, and you can wear the fish out. So, any questions about this rod and reel? You?
Well, like the jigs are expensive. They're probably like about $3 or $4 for like the one.
Yep. I know the Rapala jigging wraps and the Rapala snapper wraps. Those lures are pretty expensive. I think they're, like you said, like $7 or $8 a pop.
What time is it?
I don't know. I'm expecting to be about an hour. So far.
4:52.
Really? Okay, I've been talking a while, haven't I?
Oh boy.
Anyways.
Oh.
So to kind of skip through this is going to be my rod for anything like spoons.
Like what?
For spoons. These are spoons right here. These are High Tech Fishing Hogger spoons.
Oh.
Because they only got that single hook on there. With that single hook, I want deeper penetration. Anything like these buckshot rattle spoons right here. Again, they have that treble hook on there, but because of the big profile, you want a stiffer rod. This rod I use is 36 inches, and it's by St. Croix, and I fish this for mostly lake trout, because lake trout, for those of you who don't know, lake trout have very stiff rod, or rock hard mouths. That came all wrong. Lake trout have rock hard mouths, and you want a stiff rod to get a lot of deep penetration in that fish's mouth. So a few accessories that I have is this small tackle box right here. This keeps my tip-up markers, my swivels, my sinkers, my hooks, anything that I need when it comes to catching a lot of northern through the ice. This I use right here. This is a high-tech fishing fish counter, and this is really convenient because it just clips on right there, and if you don't want to keep emptying out your bucket to count your fish, you just slide one of these beads down, and you can look at this, and you can count how many fish you got. This has 30 beads on it, and for every five beads, there's a different color. Next is this lock de-icer. I got one of these because for my permanent shanty, I have a padlock on it. It's not something that you need, it's just something that I have to defreeze my padlock to get in my shanty. This right here comes in handy really well because this is a high-tech fishing bait safe, and this can keep your wax worms or spikes. And the reason why you want one of these is because when you have those little bait cartons, you know what them little bait cartons look like. I've had situations where I dig in my pockets and I find that the carton has opened up and I have wax worms digging around in my coat. So I don't want that to happen, so I use one of these high-tech fishing bait safes right here, or bait container, and it'll keep my bait sealed really well, and it won't be spilling out in my pockets. So I had a couple questions too about the tip-ups. Definitely the best on the market, and definitely the most affordable tip-up on the market is the high-tech fishing polar tip-up. This is what a polar tip-up looks like, and the thing I love about this is that they're just so simple. They're really affordable. I think down in Holland, I think these are only like $10 compared to a beaver dam tip-up. They sell them for $60 a piece. You know, I'm not hating on that company, but I'm just saying we'll go with something that you know you can afford. These I primarily use for pike fishing. You pretty much, since we don't have that much time, I'm going to tell you, look forward to a video of how to depth your tip up. But I'll use a depth finder, drop your lure down, and then depth your tip up, and just put the tip up like that. And when the fish takes it, the flag trips like that, you run up, set the hook on your fish, and fight your fish. So again, this is the high-tech fishing polar tip-up, definitely the best on the market, guys, for anything. Very durable base, and I'll show you my other polar tip-up right here. Yeah?
Well, my friend, he put like a buzzer on his, so like when the flag goes up, sometimes you can't hear it, so put a buzzer on it.
Well, I'd say about every 30 seconds I'm looking at these, or if I'm just tip-up fishing, I'm scanning the area. It's like you're deer hunting. For those of you who deer hunt, you're scanning the deer. You're scanning the woods, and you're scanning the environment for hours, and for a lot of time, and then all of a sudden you see that one thing that catches your eye. Yeah.
Well, one time, like, hunting, I was hunting,
Mhm.
and it was in the fall, and I heard crunching, and I looked in the brush, and I could see, legs of a deer, and a buck came out. So, you listen and you watch your deer also. That's,
Yeah.
like you said, that's a good.
But see, you know what I mean.
Yes.
You just see that one thing that catches your eye, and you just react to it. Something that I did differently to this polar tip-up right here is I had an old tip-up, and I took one of the normal spindles off, and this is the spindle right here, the thing that spins around when you got a fish. I took the old spindle off because that spindle is thicker and it's longer. This one is thinner and it's shorter. And the benefit of that is it's going to give the fish less time to trip this flag. See how I barely pulled on a line and that flag went up, where it took me about 2 inches of line before that came off the spindle. So that's why I put this shorter spindle on here, because it helps me catch a lot more fish. Putting these tip-ups away is kind of a pain, but something you gotta do. Is there any questions about these couple tip-ups right here before I move on to this one? Okay. This tip-up right here came out, I believe, last year. Brand new for high-tech fishing. And I actually grabbed the wrong tip-up, but whatever. This is the polar tip-up right here. And look at how compact this is. Look at how thin it is. It's really compact. And the benefit of this is, besides it being compact, you have the flag. You can adjust the flag size. The flag broke on me last year's ice fishing season, like that. But it's got a telescopic flag. See how long that flag is? And then look at how big the spool is. Look at how wide the spool is. When it comes to pike fishing, you want a really, really wide spool that can put a lot of line on it, because pike can run forever without stopping. For those of you who have fished with tip-ups before, you know what I'm talking about. Pike and go. And then you just put the flag down like this. And something that high-tech fishing did with their spindle is they made a plastic spindle. And what this spindle does, it's a more sensitive spindle. And the difference is, from a metal spindle to a plastic one that I've seen, is you don't feel that flag tripping off of the base. The base is this right here where the flag sits on. You don't feel that flag tripping off at all. So the pike won't feel anything, or the fish won't feel anything when it decides to take your lure. Another thing about this spindle too is it glows in the dark, so it's good for night fishing. Brand new for high-tech fishing, and it's a very great rod. It's a great tip-up, because it allows me to spread my tip-ups out and cover as much water as I need to. I'm the type of ice fisherman who likes to leave his tip-up spread out, because I like to cover a lot of ice, cover a lot of water, because the more space that you take up, the less space you have for other anglers. Yes?
It's 5 o'clock.
Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap up, but if you want to come back and just talk with some of the students that are here, we would love to have you come back and finish your presentation, or just maybe have a discussion panel and answer some questions. But we do have parents waiting for pickup right now, so if you want to
He has his own website too.
My YouTube channel, if you go in the YouTube search bar, you can look up On the Water with Cody, and it'll come up. You don't have to type in my last name, but if you type in On the Water with Cody, my video should pop up on the internet. And I have a whole wide selection of ice fishing videos and open water videos. And I would just like to thank you guys for coming, and feel free to check out all my gear. You can go and look at high-tech fishing's gear.
Out on the bridge. That's what we fish.
Yeah. There's a lot more bigger fish in there.
Not that much.
thank you for coming.
It was fun. I didn't think I was going to take up that much time, because when I
Website on the water of Cody.
go on YouTube.com, and in the search bar, just look up On the Water with Cody.
Before that?